The campaign that began before the walls of Belgrade was finally nearing its end. Days of siege, the exhaustion of war, and the heavy weight of waiting had settled over the army camp. Yet this exhaustion lit a spark of hope in the hearts of the soldiers who could feel victory approaching. With every passing day, the Ottoman army moved closer to the walls, and the thunder of cannons echoed across the Balkan lands. This was not just the siege of a city. It was Sultan Suleiman's first great message to Europe. He wanted to show that his justice and power would be felt not only in the east, but in the west as well. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, a completely different kind of waiting filled the air. In the courtyards of Topkapi Palace, in mosques, and in the streets, a single prayer rose. Victory. The women of the palace raised their hands to the sky every day, hoping for the Sultan's triumphant return. Everyone knew this campaign was not only a war, but the beginning of a new era. And at last, the long-awaited news arrived. Belgrade had fallen. The Ottoman Empire had won its first great victory in Europe. When the news reached Istanbul, the city felt as if it had finally exhaled. The streets filled, prayers turned into gratitude, and joy spread like waves. Sultan Suleiman was returning home victorious. The city began preparing days in advance. Flags were hung, squares were decorated, streets were cleaned. Istanbul was transforming into a city of celebration. Because this was not only a victory, it was the grand return of a ruler, but inside the palace, not every heart was beating for the same reason. For Hurrem, this return meant the end of longing. The moment she had waited for days and weeks had finally arrived. Suleiman would return. She would see him again, and the cold palace walls would regain meaning. She could not hide her excitement, because she knew the balance of power in the palace would shift once the Sultan returned. Mahidevran, however, this return meant something very different. Hurrem's presence in the palace had become a growing threat. In her eyes, this was no longer a rivalry, it was a fight for survival, and Mahidevran had no intention of losing that fight. Sultan Suleiman's entrance into Istanbul was magnificent. The people flooded the streets. Cries of victory filled the sky. This was not just a welcome, it was a declaration of a ruler's power. As the city turned into a festival, the palace gates opened and the Sultan stepped inside. The first person who wanted to see him was Hurrem. Months of longing melted away in a single glance. When their eyes met, the noise of the palace seemed to disappear. This meeting was not just a reunion, it was a new beginning that would change the balance of the palace. When night fell, the palace sank into silence. But this silence was not the peace of calm, it was the warning of an approaching disaster. Mahidevran had made her decision. Tonight, everything would end. The sherbet prepared in Hurrem's chamber appeared to be an ordinary treat, but the poison mixed into it was powerful enough to change the fate of the palace. Everything was moving according to plan. No one must suspect a thing. Hurrem drank the sherbet, unaware of what awaited her. Minutes later, her breathing grew tight. Her vision darkened. She collapsed to the floor. The palace was thrown into chaos. Screams echoed through the corridors. Servants ran in panic. The news quickly reached Sultan Suleiman. Without hesitation, he rushed to Hurrem's chamber. When he saw her lying motionless on the floor, his expression changed. This was not only fear, it was the beginning of fury. Ibrahim, he called. The first person he wanted to see. But Ibrahim was not in the palace. That night, he had gone to a secret meeting. This delay pushed the Sultan's patience to its limits. But the moment Ibrahim returned and learned what had happened, he acted immediately. This was not just a poisoning, it was an attack on the Sultan's heart. Ibrahim began to investigate. Every corner of the palace was questioned. Every servant was interrogated. Every detail was examined. The poison had come from inside the palace. He was certain of it. Meanwhile, Gulcha was in a panic. The truth was on the verge of being exposed. She moved quickly to erase the traces she had left behind. But no secret could remain hidden for long in the palace. It did not take long for Ibrahim to reach Gulcha. When the truth came out, the expression on Ibrahim's face froze. This was not just a crime, it was a truth that would shatter the heart of the palace. Now, a decision awaited him. And that decision would change the fate of everyone in the palace. If you can feel the tension rising in the palace, you know the approaching storm has only just begun. And the next episode may change everything.